Hey, Sean Chandler here with Sean Chandler Talks About. And as I always say, I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. So today I am joined by one of my good YouTube buddies. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Gino Reynolds from the Reel Geno, also known as the man with the real opinion. I live by the moniker, remember, it's only just one guy's opinion.
And so as of recently, we've been talking about wanting to do a collaboration. We both love Star Wars, as you can tell from the stuff over my shoulder. And so with that, we started talking about what would be fun to have a good discussion about. And as with the current Star Wars movies, the current canon, there's a lot of questions out there that just kind of had us thinking it would be fun to have a great conversation just to talk about the Star Wars theories in regards to Rey's parents, who is Snoke, what's going to happen with the Ghost crew from Star Wars Rebels, as well as what's going to go on with Princess Leia. And so I guess which one of these is most interesting to you?
For me, it's how they're going to handle Leia, to be honest. And we'll get into it when we get there. But being that it's a touchy subject, I'm really curious. And I love the fact that they've already addressed it.
Yes.
Because everyone was like, well, what are you going to do? Are we going to see what we saw in Rogue One? Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that one is the one that interests me the most.
Yeah, for me, I guess maybe the one that I'm most interested in is Rey's parents, somewhat simply because just kind of with the way The Force Awakens plays out, it just puts so many mysteries, so many question marks that you go, I just really wonder who this is. Now, Princess Leia is the one that has probably the most emotional weight, and that's probably why a little bit like I'm like, I feel uneasy about that one, so I'm not quite sure what I feel about that. So with that said, let's go on into our first one on here. And the first one we mentioned we're going to talk about is who are Rey's parents? Before we start talking about our theories and go back and forth, I did a little bit of research, looked up several different potential options. And here's six different ones I saw on the internet doing some research. Luke is her dad, number one. Number two, Obi Wan Kenobi. 3, Ezra from Rebels. 4, she's a clone of Anakin Skywalker or some sort of rebirth of Anakin Skywalker. 5, she's related to Emperor Palpatine. And 6, she's created by the Force. So which one of those sounds the dumbest to you?
The dumbest is created by the Force. And I hadn't heard that one. But if that's what they're going with for, they use that for Anakin.
Right.
He just appeared. I have a feeling that in these new movies, we're going to hear more about that it wasn't just the Force that created Anakin. That one's dumb to me. The one I don't want it to be is Luke. Mm-hmm. I imagine Luke as kind of, he's of the Force. That's what he puts his focus on. And I know the extended universe that doesn't really count anymore, had him with a wife and everything. But I just don't see that. I see him as being it's for the Force and that's it. And besides, the Skywalker lineage is already continued through Han and Leia's son. So if they're going to continue the Skywalker, you have that. I don't want to be another Skywalker.
Right. Yeah, for me, the idea of bringing Palpatine into it and him having a side woman sounds silly to me. The idea that she's a clone or rebirth of Anakin also, I just kind of go,
Well, there's the debate on whether or not clones can use Force powers. I think the game The Force Unleashed, even though I know that don't exist anymore either, technically. They kind of dealt with that. Well, if he's a clone, then he couldn't use the Force. I don't know what I think of that one either. I think it's too simple. The one that I like, there's two I really like. The one I really like is it being Ezra and Sabine's kid.
Yeah.
That's the one I like the most because I liked, especially with last week's episodes of Rebels or 2 weeks ago when they started adding in the Rogue One character of Saw Gerrera. They're going to start linking that stuff together. And there's a rumor that for episode 8, Benicio del Toro is Ezra. So he's the villain. And you just have this feeling that Ezra's story is not going to turn out well in Rebels. And I don't want Ezra to be a bad guy. But story-wise, I think it would be great.
Yeah, so I guess my concern on that one, or where I go, man, I just don't know if they go there, is I think we really need to see how much they're committed to treating all canon on the same level. Yeah. As opposed to just kind of like, oh yeah, Saw Gerrera, there's direct connections to the TV shows now through Saw Gerrera. But even the way Saw Gerrera is portrayed in Rogue One is very different from the way he was in the episode.
Yeah. How many years does Rebels take before Rogue One? It's a few years.
A few years. I think it's really unclear because I was thinking closer, and then they've mentioned that they might do an episode of Rebels that basically is the Rogue One episode that's kind of Rogue One from their perspective. And so there have been a lot of those rumors. So I'm not quite sure how much it is, except to say that Saw Gerrera is really weird and in really bad shape in Rogue One, and seems significantly less weird on Rebels. But just to see how much if they would actually do something that such a big, gigantic twist, answer to questions for something that will be seen by so many people, going back to a TV show that has a much smaller fan base, very strong fan base, but smaller. That's where I'd be most nervous. But I think that would be the one that would have like the most resonance without feeling so forced and contrived that everyone's a Skywalker or Kenobi, and it's where the family tree's pretty straight, where the Star Wars saga has felt thus far that everyone is so interconnected and so tightly together. That's where I get nervous about it.
That's where the two strongest possibilities tie into TV shows. Whereas in the Ezra thing ties in the Rebels, the Obi Wan thing
That's true. Yeah,
may or may not tie into Clone Wars.
That's right.
If you go with, Rey as a granddaughter, or I don't want to do the math, but a granddaughter, great-granddaughter of Obi-Wan, when he had the year-long protection of that princess, I can't remember her name, from Clone Wars, and who knows, they may have had a secret baby that they play. Or, if Obi-Wan got a little lonely, let's say, on Tatooine before Star Wars, you could have it that way too. So it may or may not tie to a TV show. And honestly, I think being that they're owned by Disney now, and Disney is tying their movies to their TV shows loosely, but they're tying, say the Marvel stuff. I could see them doing this for the Star Wars stuff too, just to get people to watch the Star Wars stuff on TV.
Right. The way you mentioned that, even as you're saying, I was like, man, I think like if they revealed it was Kenobi through these other things and referencing like this small love affair that's kind of established in a TV show, that to me feels like something that would come together and be like, oh, that'd be really cool. Ezra one seemed, I don't get as passionate like, ooh, that's really cool. And my nervous side kind of ticks up on it. So I'm going to go, if I had to pick one, the one that would be the most like that sounds good. I think I'm going to go with the Obi-Wan connection, not really even defining even which path that looks like, but there's more paths per se to be there with Kenobi that I would get excited about. So which one would you have to pick? One is the one that you would go with. Which one are you picking?
Well, see, I would honestly, I know they're not going to do it. I have a feeling they're not going to do it. I would go with the Ezra one.
Okay.
But I think they are going to go with the Obi-Wan version, because why would they have worked so hard to fit Obi-Wan, his voice, into that vision?
That's true.
In episode 7. I think that's where they're going. I have a feeling we're going to get Ewan McGregor ghost Obi-Wan in the next movie. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that's where they're going. I don't know if they're going to use the Clone Wars thing. It would make more sense to me. That way you'd have, more of a kind of a past web you could use instead of, well, who was he with on, Tatooine? I mean, because why wouldn't they have ever mentioned it, But the one I think they're going to go with is Obi-Wan. The one I want, though, is because I love Rebels. I want it to be the Ezra one, because honestly, I want Benicio del Toro to be Ezra Bridger. So,
yeah, I haven't quite we'll get to, we can discuss those ones when we get to one of our next questions. With that, if you want to take the lead on our second question.
Yeah, the next big question everyone's asking, who is Snoke? For me, there's been a bunch of good ideas for this and a bunch of bad ideas. One of the bad ones that I love, because it makes Samuel L. Jackson mad, because he's like, well, Mace Windu's alive. It's like, fine, you can be Snoke then. I think that one's really dumb.
It's right.
I've also heard the Emperor, which I don't want it to be the Emperor. It's like, well, it's the same bad guy.
Right.
The one that makes the most sense to me is Darth Plagueis, and you may agree with that. I know he didn't get much of a mention in the prequels, and everyone's trying to dodge the prequels, but having a character that can defy death and the way he looks, I mean, he looks pretty damaging. And also, where did, Kylo Ren get that lightsaber that looks like it was one of the first ones ever created? It's all messed up and everything, and the lightsaber part of it's all, janky and everything. And I have a feeling that might have been Plagueis' lightsaber. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, or if they may even just have some kind of new thing, or he's just a guy. He just may be a new creation, because not everything has to link to everything. But if they're going to link it to something, Darth Plagueis would be my hope and my guess.
Yeah, I did. I looked up another article on this one as well. So it mentioned Pelagius, Palpatine, Darth Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin, Mace Windu, Grand Inquisitor, Ezra, and the Operator, who apparently is a character from Aftermath, the Life Dead book. So I think that's 8 different ones that people threw out there. Of those 8, is there one? What's the dumbest one to you?
Darth Vader. I mean, because honestly, and here's something that people probably won't like. I think we're going to get a Hayden Christensen Force Ghost sometime. Granted, I think given the right direction and the right script, that guy could do good. I think it was mainly the script and everything that's really screwed him in the prequels. So I don't think it's going to be Darth Vader. I like it. The Inquisitor would be a good pick. That's one character I didn't think got enough playtime in the Rebel show.
Well, and it's like they opened up kind of this world of other dark force users.
Yeah.
And that opens like a really big door for potential for ramifications, implications to this world in the big general sense. So there's a lot of potential in that direction.
Well, that's just it. I mean, think about this. Everyone's like, well, there's only, how many Jedi are left? Well, it's only Yoda and Obi Wan. It's a pretty big galaxy. Right. I mean, we find out Ahsoka's alive, and who knows if she still is after that awesome battle between her and Darth Vader in Rebels, which I recommend highly. That episode made me cry. But it's a big galaxy, and how many Inquisitors do we have? We've had 3 in Rebels so far: the Grand Inquisitor, and then the girl and the guy that fought in the season finale of season 2. Plus, I mean, Darth Maul's still out there. Right. You never know where there's going to be a hidden Force user somewhere, or someone that knows how to use, a lightsaber. So who knows? I don't know why he would need to change his name anyway, but because, I mean, if someone says the Inquisitor's still alive, I don't know how much of a reaction that's going to get. But
right. Well, exactly. And that's kind of the thing when you introduce a character like this, that it's like, who is he? Where's he coming from? You either have to make him someone new, or the reveal is really impactful. And like Grand Inquisitor, if you saw episode 7 of Rebels season 2, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Most people be like, what?
Yeah.
Or likewise, the Operator, you go in a reference to a book, the second book in what? And that's where I guess for me, if I were to pick where I would tend to lean, it would be either new character or Darth Plagueis. Yeah. Which he'd be someone that it's kind of a name that's loosely out there for the general public. They're like, oh yeah, I guess that was referenced before and mentioned.
Yeah.
The real fan. But so there's just enough of a seed there that it ties things together in a really cool way, because it, especially when it, ties back to his origins and his abilities, his obsessions, you go, oh, that would make sense that he'd still be around.
Yeah. And that is the wise move. They have to. I mean, yes, I know they have these books. I have not read the books yet that they come out with not too long ago. The wise move is to attach it to the movies somehow, because that's what most people know.
Right.
As much as we want these cool things to happen, unfortunately, Rebels is what it is. The Clone Wars is what it is. Though they are canon, yeah, I want them to attach this stuff because I like the idea of that stuff counting. But chances are that's probably not going to happen.
Right. So if you had to absolutely pick your one, which one are you going with?
Plagueis. Definitely Plagueis.
That's my pick for if there's a name we already know. It's Plagueis. I would think if I'm going between, is it Plagueis or just a totally new person? I'm going slightly, 6 out of 10 times I'm going to pick new character. 4 out of 10 times I'd go Darth Plagueis. That's where I would be at.
I'm actually okay with it being a new character. I mean, there's nothing wrong with creating new lineages and things like that. Not every, as we said earlier, not everything has to be connected. But as fans, we like to try to anyway.
Right. Well, and I think that's where some of it with we assume there's this big backstory of who he is and everything because we're looking for mysteries and big reveals. But he can just be a new evil character. Yeah. The thing that they've established so much so with Rebels, with even Clone Wars, and with the new movies is that there's lots of Force users, or there's lots of people that know about the Force, and it's not just Jedi and Sith. You've got other people out there, and so there's all kinds of other options in the mix.
One thing they may do, and I was thinking about this the other day, is for characters like that, we're getting all these Star Wars stories. You never know. We may get a story about Snoke, how he connects to the universe, and it could be an all-new story. And honestly, I'd be totally okay with that because I'm afraid that these Star Wars stories, the next one's the Han Solo one, and then they were talking about doing a Boba Fett one. And it's like, I know they want to connect everything to our known universe already, but honestly, where's our Knights of the Old Republic type stuff? I want to see stuff like that. And if they do something like that with Snoke, where it's like, oh, that's where he comes from, holy crap, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, that's with the standalone ones. I don't know if it's so much they're trying to tie it to known commodities or so much as they're trying to make safe bets and make money is what it feels like to me. Like, who will they show up to see? Han Solo, Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Knights of the Old Republic is way more interesting, though.
See, and that's just it. I think they're going the safe bet right now.
Yep.
Just to see if people will buy into it, which they should already know that people are going to buy into it. It's Star Wars, man.
Right.
But I think they are wanting to go to safe bet. Well, let's see if we can tell them stories of characters they already know, and then we'll try one that's one of these new characters, that we haven't learned much about. And then maybe further down the road, because we're going to be getting Star Wars stories. As long as they're making money, we're going to be getting them for a long time. And I think that after a while, they're going to have to start giving us stuff that has really not much, if anything, to do with the known episodes. So I'm actually hoping for that because I would love to see a Knights of the Old Republic movie.
Right. But to tie back to Snoke is kind of one final thought on Snoke. Snoke's the one that probably has me the most nervous, even of these questions, the one that I feel like there's the most potential for something that's just kind of feels really disappointing, like a letdown, because he is this mysterious, big, evil, bad guy in the distance. But unlike with the original trilogy where you could do that with the Emperor and kind of have him play in later on, it doesn't work here because we have the 6 episodes beforehand. We've got books set between the original trilogy and this new set of movies, and they haven't mentioned this guy. So the big plot reveal has the potential to be very disappointing. So I'm nervous on the Snoke one. That I hope they've got something really, really good planned. And I guess in the classic J.J. Abrams critique is he's great at setting up the mystery, but many times the things where he sets up the great mystery in part 1, when you get to part 2 and 3 and they reveal what it is, underwhelming. Now I got some fears.
Yeah, me too. But, as much as people harp on episode 7 for it feeling too much like, A New Hope, I got a feeling they got something up their sleeve with him. If they don't, that sucks. But, they're keeping the focus off of him, which I think is kind of smart.
Yeah.
They're focusing on Rey and a little bit more on Finn and Kylo Ren to kind of where if they got something big, they may sneak it in for Snoke. And I'm really hoping. I'm afraid of it too, but I'm always afraid of a new Star Wars movie, especially after the prequels. So.
All right, with that, let's move on to our third question, and that is, what happens to the crew of the Ghost? So if you don't watch Star Wars Rebels, the ship on that is the Ghost, and it takes place before the original trilogy. In the original trilogy, we never see any of these characters. They're part of the rebellion. They interact Lando, Princess Leia, Darth Maul. Looks like Kenobi's playing into it. So the question is, where'd they go? So I looked up an article. Here are 6 different options it mentions. They go into hiding. They were there all along. We just never saw them. They were captured and held on the Death Star, which would end badly for them. Yeah. They vacationed on Alderaan, which would end badly for them. Ezra turns to the dark side, kills some people, and joins up with Darth Maul. And our last one, Kanan and Ezra move beyond the Jedi-Sith dichotomy, and they go into retirement off in the distance. What are your thoughts? Where do you kind of fall on this one?
You know, as much as I hate saying it, because I like Rebels so much and I want that show to last a while, it just can't. I think they're moving towards Ezra turning evil. And I don't want it because I like that character so much, but I have a feeling that it's going to be maybe not a situation he wants to choose, but a situation he has to choose to become evil. I honestly think he's going to be the one that kills Kanan. I don't want that either. I love Kanan Jarrus, and he's one of my favorite new characters. The rest of the crew of the Ghost, I'm not sure. It depends. I don't know if you've seen today's episode.
I have not. Last one I watched was the Saw Gerrera.
Okay, I won't spoil it for you, but on the Disney XD app, you can actually watch the new cartoons before they show at night. So they talk about the Darksaber and Sabine. And I don't know where that's going to go, but if she could end up turning bad too, you just never know. If her and Ezra end up together, of course, that leads into the Rey thing. Mm-hmm. But Ezra especially, I think, is going to turn bad. Well, I don't think he's going to kill everybody. The other ones may go into hiding or any of these other things. Honestly, I think they're, in a way, all of them will probably die heroically, maybe saving someone or stopping something, for helping someone get away, something like that. But honestly, I just have this feeling that Ezra is going to turn to the dark side. That's my big one on that one.
Yeah, I guess where I really struggle on where I think it's going to go is just how dark will Disney go? And certainly Disney's gone dark with Clone Wars and with this show already. They're not afraid to have some violence in there, and they're not afraid to kill some people off. Where I'm thinking, though, is it gets really dark when you've got this show that's for tweens and you kill everybody off, and the lead character, one of the 2 lead guys kills the other one and it turns and runs off evil. That's pretty dark for a Disney cartoon for tweens. And that's kind of where I go, man, I'm really struggling because that seems to be that would make the most sense. And what could be really cool is the last episode, the last story arc is kind of the Rogue One story arc, and half of them die in that final battle. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that very well could happen too.
But at the same time, once again, it gets pretty dark. But I think that would be the one that might be the most satisfying to me, is if a bunch of people die in the Rogue One conclusion or something like that. And then, a couple of them survive off on, Princess Leia's ship or something like that.
Well, see, here's my thing. If the characters survive, I'd be a little disappointed we never saw them.
Right. No.
I'm not saying and like I said, unless say Ezra shows up later or something. But I want to see a live action Zeb. I would love to see that. I have this feeling that they will not survive. The last episode of Rebels will be them, either joining evil, or they're not. I don't mean all of them, but those that'll be sacrificed will be sacrificed. They're not going to, I don't think they're going to survive. And that's unfortunate. And the reason I think they may actually go that way, Disney's not afraid to go dark. I mean, if you've watched stuff like Gravity Falls, they're not afraid to, take it to the dark side a little bit and the scary side. My son watches Rebels with me. He's 7, and he isn't too affected. Like, say, they in an episode not too long ago, they took down the Star Destroyer. And it's like, well, people died on that Star Destroyer. I mean, they're not showing it, but you see the ship go down, and that could be very well how they handle Rebels as well. If they're gonna kill off the characters, I don't want to see it, but I think that's the way they're going to have to go. Otherwise, people are going to wonder, why aren't they there? They could have been fighting another battle or something somewhere. Like we said, it's a big galaxy, but to just write these characters off, to me, story-wise, doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. Well, that's somewhat the inherent problem in doing a series like this, where if they're doing something that matters, that has consequences on the universe, then we should know who they are, how they tie in, they should come up again, or they're dead. And that's the corner they've kind of run themselves into, to where I think the only satisfying conclusion to the series ends up being lots of dead people.
Yeah. Well, they tried this before. We mentioned Force Unleashed earlier. They tried this before to where the main, Starkiller, I think, was the main character in that. And they tried to tie him in too much, where like his family symbol ended up being the symbol for the rebellion or something like that. And it's like, wait a minute, you can't do that, because his name would be, there would be statues of that guy.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think that in an important battle, I just see them sacrificing themselves. That is the most fitting way that I could see them, because it would be something they do. Whether or not Ezra's with them, that can be a toss up. I don't want to see that, because I honestly think, satisfying wise, I think him turning evil makes the most sense, or at least turning to the dark side. I wouldn't say evil. But I just have a feeling that somehow they're going to have to sacrifice themselves to keep the rebellion going. They're going to be the Empire's going to destroy a big base or something.
Right. And
they're the ones that hold them off to where the good guys can get away. That's the way I see the series ending for those characters, because the series can't go on forever, unfortunately.
Right. So with that, let's go on to our final topic, and probably the one that's probably the most emotional.
Yeah.
What do you got?
What are they going to do with Princess Leia moving forward? And as we mentioned earlier, Disney come right out and said, look, we're not going to do digital Leia. The way I think I was afraid they were going to do something like that. But, Tarkin they could get away with, even though they kind of did. I mean, some of it worked. They should have handled it a little better, but it was what it was. I'm happy they said they weren't going to like CG her in or use a different actress. I would have been okay with recasting, but then again, I'm not, because they talked about that. Should we just recast? You can't recast Carrie Fisher. I mean, that's just one of the iconic characters. You put someone else in the suit of C-3PO, okay, you might get away with that. You're going to have R2-D2 without Kenny Baker. But Leia's one of the main 3, and you're not going to get away with that. Honestly, the way I want to see them handle this is write her out between movies. I don't know how important she is. In the next episode, they said she filmed everything, and they said she was supposed to be a 9. Doesn't mean they're not lying to us that she may die in 8. We don't know. I don't want to see it. I want to see her pass away between episodes. I want them to somehow write that in. It's like, well, the rebellion didn't get her, but this did. Not violently, by the way. I wanted her to just pass away naturally, because I don't want, the story wise, blowing her up in a ship you don't even see her on doesn't make any sense, and it's sad and it's kind of cruel if you think about it. But I want them to write her out and then use her as a symbol to kind of spur on the rebellion. Also, and this goes back to episode 7, where Kylo Ren is trying to get Anakin's lightsaber. Okay, Kylo hated his dad. He didn't hate his mom. His mom dying might be also a catalyst for him coming back to the light side. Ever since he tried to grab that lightsaber, I'm like, sometime during this trilogy, this new trilogy, he is going to reach out and going to be able to pull that saber, and it's going to be when he comes back to the light side. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that they could use her death as an emotional way to help bring him back. Whether or not that'll happen, it's what I want to see. And I just think using Leia as a rally cry to spur on the good guys is the most honorable thing you could do to honor Carrie Fisher and the character of Princess Leia.
Yeah, I guess my take, somewhat similar, somewhat different. Well, pretty different fundamentally, because your story implication here was not to kill her off between episodes, but to send her off, to have some other reason that she's not available. So she's imprisoned. She's something that takes her away so we wouldn't see her, that ties into the story, but doesn't involve killing her off. Any way that she died in real life, I guess we have to kill her, seems very off-putting to me. And so then something along those lines that has some reason that she's not there, that's not killing her, would be my take on it, which of course it's so difficult to even speculate on it, because we're talking about jumping forward an entire movie and not knowing anywhere what the moving pieces are in the next one makes it so interesting to go, wow, that is a weird one for us to speculate on, because it's so far out, but at the same time feels so imminent.
Well, all we know is what they've told us. And what they've told us is she was supposed to be a 9. And like I said, they could be covering up a story arc in 8. I'm okay with that. But we can only speculate on what they've told us. And see, my problem with, I'm not saying I want that character to die, but the problem, it's the same problem they ran into in the Fast and Furious movies. Okay, Paul Walker dies, right? Well, if his character's still alive, which, by the way, they would have been very cruel to kill him off in a car wreck in a movie, being that that's how he passed away. But he's still in that universe. And even in the trailer for that new movie, there's a picture of him. And it's like, well, he's still there somewhere.
Right.
And if the character's there, not having him there, it's hard to fathom that. He would show up sometime. And so that's what I feel about having her still here in the universe is, yeah, it's a big universe, but somehow she would turn back up. You couldn't just, I don't know. I don't see them writing her out like that, because they'd have to address it. That's too important of a character not to address somehow. And yeah, it is a bit off-putting to kill her off. And that's why I said not violently, because that way, you could basically say, well, the Empire couldn't get her, it just, something happened. I don't want to see a spaceship blow up or anything like that. That's just not the way I want to see it done. But having her still exist would almost force them in the future to maybe try to put her in CG form, unfortunately. And I don't want to see that either, especially after Rogue One. A little bit was fine, but having Tarkin walk around the entire time, the more he was on screen, the more off-putting it was. And if they end up having to do that with Leia 20 years down the line, just because she's still there, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want them to kill her off either. But, I mean, it's a necessary evil they may actually have to take.
So overall, those are our different theories, which I guess as we kind of talked through it, which one of these do you think you're most confident that you're right about?
The Leia one, actually,
Okay.
Because I think they're going to have to address it. That's why I'm confident about it. I'm confident about a few of the others, but being that this one has such an absolute, they kind of have to do it, I think it's the Leia one.
And you're saying between movies, she's killed off, written off.
They're just going to have, she passed away. That I think they're just going to say she passed away. They're not going to say this killed her, whatever. It's just like Princess Leia is lost to us. And as the as the rebellion moves on, they use her memory to spur them forward. Something like that. You could even start somehow at her funeral. Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, I wouldn't show her, or if they figure out a good way to do it. I don't really want to see that, but I think that they're going to try to honor her as much as they can at the beginning of episode 9.
Yeah, I guess for me on my end, I'm just so much of a confused on all of these. I have no idea. And that's kind of what makes it so exciting to me is there's so many question marks. There's so many things where you go, man, I really want to know the answer to that. What are they going to do? And that kind of goes back to how powerful the storytelling is. And even, all the criticisms people would have against The Force Awakens, you left the movie and you went, oh, I wonder about this. I wonder about this. Who's going to do this? What's going to happen here? And they set up a world that made you ask questions and want to see the next piece to it and a fun ride along the way. And that's what I wanted out of the movie. So,
well, I think with The Force Awakens, they made it similar to A New Hope. The reason I think they did that, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, is they had to get our confidence back.
Right.
After 3 not so good Star Wars movies, you had to bring us back saying, ooh, I'm excited. I want to see another one. Because you, as I'm sure I were afraid of that movie. Mm-hmm. You were afraid of what it was going to be. Yeah, we had faith in JJ, the way he was talking about making the movie and everything. But still, we were scared. And as many issues as people have with that movie, that was a darn good movie and a darn good bring back to the universe.
Yeah, it just even the complaints, they feel like, okay, you're telling me why it's not a great movie. Mm-hmm. You're not telling me why it's a bad movie. But the way some people talk about it, not a majority, but some people with the way they talk about it, it's the worst movie. It's terrible. It's horrible. So I put up a video ranking all the Star Wars movies after Rogue One came out, and a significant chunk of people have The Force Awakens as the worst one. Yeah. And there are people that just hate it. And I just go, if this was not called Star Wars, if this was just, adventures in space, it would be a very fun Star Wars knockoff. Yeah. You'd be like, that's a very enjoyable, well-made Star Wars knockoff. Not as great as Star Wars, but a worthwhile adventure ride.
Definitely.
In which case, that means that this is a very acceptable addition to the series. That's fun and enjoyable. And like I said, makes you want to see more. And that's what I think kind of really matters on some of this. All right. With all that said, let's kind of close out. Where can we find you on the internet?
I am on the Reel Geno on YouTube. That's ReelGeno.
And on my end, my name's Sean Chandler, and you probably, since you're on my channel, you know who I am. We love to talk about movies. We don't want to just talk about Star Wars theories. We want to talk about Star Wars theories with you. So, guys, comment into the comment section. Really spark up a conversation. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Star Wars fan theories, and we want to talk with you about them. If you're new to my channel, you never click that subscribe button, please consider clicking that subscribe button. During the work week, I do a movie news roundup each day. I do 3 or 4 movie reviews each week, as well as a live show on Sundays. From time to time, I do videos like this where I talk about stuff that I love, that I'm passionate about. But like I said, I don't want to just talk about this stuff. I want to talk about it with you. So please join us in the comment section. Consider clicking that subscribe button. And thank you for watching.